Fear ni fear minia. Long live God, man. Long live the baby man.
One time. So come to Jenny Mumpire. So come for we are fire. I'm idea but to you. None idea but to you. Me free Ghana, me man penny a wodi kanu your friend on Dr. Nkrumah. Me mini sign up when my dear number your mama. I send back coupe bi na me ya eya me nwanwa. Here ono na je fan hu de. Ye na ra ya sasini eya body de ma ye. Moja na no hie gunya de to ha ma ye. Edru me ne wo to say ye be ye bi ato aso tie. Ke na de be ya me ne wa. Ya me ne odi ya. Na me ya me ne odi ya. Wo so no bi ne bi o. Say Ray Obiana wa and then Jana into young Physican Tons of Fangu from Namo Frayina, come Nayan to Jomon Campo, Yamusa, Yakina, no more there be and so did video some year no native Gana City, Obia baby, and not to any greedy, Abra Janka Bitty baby, and I will go to Koibia, Bianco, Bini, Libya, when I was Suya. Rene Usima Baku and the Piatos and Uncle and so woke up Parliament, Akonako, and I just say, I want to become a power man for Jankan Koya Bawana, and Masa Bibia, woman, Pango Shabin, some tower, and yes, I know Potipa, when I want to try a mind tower. When you mean success, and you're bad, you're Casagua, me, then you're not in power, yes, Muntia, Nana, mine, you pan a head, I'm in Udia, Nana, I'm in Udia, so, no, be a nebio.
Welcome to the traditional edition of Diaspora Weekly. This is Jermaine Nkrumah, and you're watching Diaspora Network Television. Your eyes and ears around the globe. Today, you're going to see something that you probably have never seen on this show before. You're going to see tradition and a lot of tradition merge with diaspora issues. But as usual, before you meet my guests, we got to go to the jangle. So stay tuned for the jangle. Okay, so today's jangle, I'm going to pick on the airlines that fly to Ghana, and for that matter, to the rest of Africa. I have taken notice, and indeed some of our friends in the diaspora have taken notice and reported to us. Let's say you're flying from Canada to Ghana, right? Your first leg is from Canada to a city in Canada to a city in Europe. The service on that flight, excellent. Free Wi-Fi. You're coming from United States, any city to Europe, same thing. The moment you transit in Europe and you're flying to any spot in Africa, the service dips, okay? No free Wi-Fi. So it got me thinking, we're all paying the same money. Or if you take one passenger, this same passenger paid from Toronto, New York, Los Angeles, Houston, to Amsterdam, to Paris, to London. And that flight, the service and the amenities available, optimum. But then when you're coming to Africa, all that drops. The standards drop. First and foremost, at these airports, we've gone through Amsterdam, we've gone through Paris, Charles de Gaulle, we've gone through Heathrow. Even the terminals where Africans board their plane to come home to Africa, the standards are not the same. If nobody is going to say anything, Jermaine Nkrumah at DNT is going to say something about it. So a word to the airlines, do something about it, because Africans face discrimination all over the place one way or another. And when we're traveling home, we have to see this kind of difference. If you're watching, if you're a diasporan, start asking questions. The standards should not be different on the flight from New York to London and from London to Accra. There should be no difference. And today, that's the jangle. Stay tuned, you get to meet my guest.
As the national regulator of the communications industry in Ghana, the National Communications Authority seeks to ensure an environment that is safe and fair for consumers and service providers. NCA grants licenses and authorizations for operation of communication systems and services, develops guidelines to streamline communication activities, establish and monitor quality of service indicators for operators and service providers. NCA is in 8 regions: Accra, Tamale, Takoradi, Kumasi, Ho, Koforidua, Sunyani, and Bolgatanga. Do you have unresolved complaints with your service providers? Contact us on 0800110662, 0307011419 between the hours of 8 o'clock a.m. and 5 o'clock p.m. from Monday to Friday, or visit our website at www.nca.org.gh and follow the procedure for filing a complaint or submitting enquiry. National Communications Authority, communications for development.
Hello and welcome back. Today, I am delighted to welcome to the studio a friend that I know to be Professor Michael Bafo, but no, I cannot call him Professor Michael Bafo anymore. Why? Because he is now the Nana Okwajiman Dankwa Ameya Okukroko, the second chief of the Asin-Rakesi traditional area, and he is here with us in his beautiful, absolutely beautiful regalia. Nana, welcome.
Thank you.
So this is weird. On this show, do I call you Prof, or do I call you Michael, or do I call you Nana?
Nana will be fine.
Nana will be fine. Very good. So Nana it is. Welcome to DNT.
Thank you for having me here.
You and I go way back. When we sit down to talk, I don't drink, and I don't know if you drink, but we could pop up something and we can talk till we finish whatever it is that we popped up, and we'll still be talking.
Yes. A lot of issues to talk about.
Lots of stuff
a lot
to
of
talk
history.
about. So we're going to try to hit on some of them today.
Okay.
But to start off, you've been in the news. I heard you're being tough on Cocoa Board. What's going on?
Well, Cocoa Board leased a land from my elders many years ago, in actual fact, since 1975, for a 40-year lease. And they took the land because they wanted to establish a cocoa research station, which was going to be managed by the Cocoa Research Institute of Ghana. So going to try new technologies in cocoa production and all kinds of stuff. And the land was as big, large tract of land measuring 450 acres.
That's larger than East Legon.
Much larger than that.
Wow.
Yeah. And so as part of the agreement that they came to with my elders, they were going to create jobs in the course of the life of the lease and the work that they were going to do there. They were going to create jobs for the large number of youth in the community and its surrounding villages. In natural fact, my traditional area is very big.
I know, I'm living.
Yeah.
If you have 450 acres to give out, what's the total size?
Well, this is a small size. So one part, the
Wow.
eastern part of the traditional area, in natural fact, it shares borders with the eastern region at the Achimswedro.
Well, guess what? Now you're my new best friend now. If you are the Nana over this much land, you're my new best friend.
Yeah, and so apart from okay, in leasing the land, part of the agreement was that they were going to pay annual royalties, whatever the cash value is, annual royalties to the community, to the traditional rulers, and to the community. So two things here: creating jobs for the youth, and also paying annual royalties. And then, as part of their social corporate responsibility to the community, they were supposed to build a school, a market, a health center, a police station, and the rehabilitation of a 17-kilometer road that links the town to the cocoa research station.
And it's all written in the agreement.
It's all in the agreement. Well, it's regrettable to know that for the 40 years that they had the lease, they never paid the royalties. The annual royalties were never paid. The elders that they had negotiated with, who maybe thumbprinted the agreement, they didn't know how to read and write. So I don't know what kind of bullying went on between them and the Cocoa Board, but the royalties were never paid.
Okay,
but
let me chime in briefly. So you took over from folks who were not exactly professors as you are.
Well, not professors at that level, but they had no formal education.
Formal education.
Yeah.
So could these people have been paid in some kind of way that weren't recorded?
I don't have proof of that, but it's likely that the Cocoa Board might have played on the poverty, the community,
right,
and played on the intelligence of the elders, and maybe might have given them some tips here and there, but I don't have proof of that.
Right.
But suffice it to say that the fact remains that for the 40 years, they never paid the royalty.
And Cocoa Board has admitted that they haven't paid the royalty.
Oh, yeah, they know that they haven't paid.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And then they didn't fulfill their social corporate responsibility to the community. They never fulfilled the promise agreement of providing those amenities, a school, health center, a market.
List.
The
so
list.
not even one of them.
Not even one of it. And that's sad. Anyway, what has brought us to this day is that the 40-year lease expired in 2015. And in 2016, precisely on the 19th of August 2016, the then CEO, Chief Executive Officer of Ghana Cocoa Board, Dr. Stephen Opuni, wrote a letter to the Traditional Council and said that the Board of Directors of Cocoa Board had taken a decision to release the entire 450 acres of land back to the community.
With the exception of about 10 acres.
Well, that's what they were proposing, with the exception of about 10 acres that they needed for something else. And then they will assist the community in boosting cocoa production and in the process improve livelihoods. That was 2016, 19th of August. That was the date on the letter. So at the end of that year, early 2017, they started dismantling their equipment that they had on the land.
Now, let me chime in. So, an agreement that was signed in 1975, up until the end of the 2015.
Yeah.
What type of communication transpired during that period, that 40-year period? Are you aware of any communication period?
Like communication between who and who?
Between Cocoa Board and the leadership, the traditional leadership.
Well, that's what I'm saying, that I know that elders from the community at that time were visiting the cocoa station, and whatever took place there between them is not in any official record.
Now, what I'm getting to is that the agreement expired in 2015. Usually, you would see a letter before the agreement lapsed, but you didn't see a letter.
No.
But you got a letter a year after.
Yes.
On the 19th of August.
2016.
How many months away from election was that? Remember 2016?
Oh, yeah, 4 months.
4 months to the election.
Yes.
And incidentally, you get a letter from them at the time, promising again, now the same group who have not built the schools, whatever, now they are promising to release the land back to you and help with cocoa production to boost blah, blah, blah. Doesn't that sound suspicious?
Well, we didn't read any politics into it. In actual fact, that was the end of the lease, 40 years, right? Yeah. So in agreeing to release that, we didn't read any politics into it.
Yeah, but the letter should have come before the agreement ended.
Well,
that's what normally...
Things don't normally work that way in this part of the world. So,
all right, okay. Maybe I'm too political.
It wasn't any strange thing to us.
Okay.
I mean, we were happy when we got the letter, even if it was a year later. We were happy we got the letter that they're going to release the land, because there had been some agitation within the community before the expiration of the lease.
Okay.
Why? Because Cocoa Board did not hire the youth from our community as promised.
Wow, okay.
So in the course of that 40-year lease, there were agitations in the community. Many of these young people have died because, I mean, that's life of hopelessness. When they get up in the morning, they have nowhere to go. They have no jobs. So, well, the devil find a job for the other hands, right? So most of them were into all kinds of stuff. Many of them have died, needlessly. So when they sent the letter in 2016, a year later after the expiration of the lease, that they were releasing the land, well, we were happy, but we didn't read any political meanings to it. In actual fact, until you drew my attention to it, I had never actually projected that it was the election year at the time.
All right. So they didn't, and now when you came, what time did you become, were you sworn in?
December 2017.
December 2017. So when he came in, all these things started popping up with you, and he said you do something.
No, I was actually following the trend.
Okay.
Like I was asking questions, and the Cocoa Board people were so strict that you just couldn't go into that research station. There's all kinds of security. What do you want here? You don't work here. So we kept actually trying to get in touch with them because of what we realized as the most important part of the lease agreement as providing jobs for the community people, which didn't happen. So even before I became a chief, I was actually interested in what was happening in that cocoa station.
So what did you do when you got sworn in?
Well, that's what, that time that letter has come. And so we started getting in touch with them that they should fulfill the terms of that letter from their chief executive officer.
Okay.
And well, if I have to reference your political angle, maybe because the election year and things were hot, nobody paid attention. But we kept on.
They had enough attention to write the letter?
Yeah, but they didn't have enough attention for implementation.
Okay.
So in the following year, in 2018, when we tried to get them to do as they had said in the letter and they were refusing, I sued them at the High Court in Cape Coast.
Okay.
And the case went on for the first 2 years. Every time you go to the court, either one lawyer didn't come or the judge will postpone the case. Then after 2 years, the docket on the case got missing from the High Court.
So the paper grew legs and walked away from the court?
Yes.
Okay. And then what happened? So what did you do about that?
Well, I petitioned the Chief Justice to get that case transferred from the High Court in Cape Coast to the High Court at Asinfosu. Asinfosu is just 10 miles away from my town.
Okay.
And so that's the district headquarters, the Asin Central Municipality. And so the Judicial Secretary responded that we should serve the petition to the Chief Justice on Cocoa Board. Okay. And we did. When we did and we served them, a particular day at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, in 2 hours, the missing docket, which might have flown somewhere,
the docket
reappeared.
The docket ran away from home for how long? How long was it missing?
2 years.
Okay. I'm sorry. The docket was missing for 2 years. But when they received the letter from the Chief Justice, the letter
came back to life. The docket came back
to life. Wonders shall never end. Okay.
But
then what happened?
At that time, I had decided that the legal system wouldn't help. Because I could not go back again for another 5 years or if it may be running to 10 years. In the meantime, Cocoa Board was misappropriating and pillaging the land. 450 acres. And our estimation was that every year they were harvesting at least 5,000 bags of cocoa. Now, a bag of cocoa now is 650 Ghana cedis. So multiply that one by 5,000 bags, it's almost about 20 million Ghana cedis every year, right? No, for the 5 years that they have been there. And then they are harvesting timber, because this large tract of land, there's a lot of all kinds of species of timber.
So why do you think they wouldn't want to do the right thing? It's not much. I mean, the amount of money that you're talking about, a school, a road, really a drop in the bucket. So why do you think these people did not want to do the right thing?
Okay, very good question. Since they wrote that letter signed by Dr. Stephen Opuni in 2016, and then they started cutting away their equipment from the station In actual fact, they were leaving.
Okay.
Then we realized towards the end of 2017 that some people were coming back. In actual fact, some of the people who used to work there before, who had retired, they started coming back, small, and then it became a full-fledged functioning operation again.
In what year?
In by the middle of 2018.
Okay.
So that is the time that I had sued them.
Okay.
And so that time, well, docket is missing. You can't continue. So after 4 years, that's why I decided that enough is enough for this legal thing, because, well, maybe they have powerful lawyers.
Yeah.
How many lawyers can I hire?
Yeah.
And Cocoa Board is a huge institution. They can go to court with 10 lawyers, maybe.
Yeah.
And so I decided to petition the presidency.
Okay.
Because that is the ultimate authority in this country. So last year, in October precisely, I wrote a petition to the presidency asking for the intervention of the presidency to ensure justice for our community, that Cocoa Board does the right thing. And I was really impressed with the response from the presidency. It was so swift. Less than 3 weeks, we got the response from the presidency with directives to the Minister for Food and Agriculture, which has oversight responsibility for Cocoa Board, to meet with the Asin Rakasi Traditional Council and find, quote, an amicable resolution to the matter.
Great. Problem solved, right?
Problem didn't solve.
What happened after that?
Well, you would think that the minister getting the directive from the presidency will act fast. Well, it didn't happen. 2 weeks later, I paid a visit with my elders to the Cocoa Research Station and delivered to them my petition, a copy of my petition, the response from the presidency, and then the letter that they themselves had written way back in 2016 and said that it is time we're taking over our property. And that very afternoon, I started getting series of calls from top officials from Cocoa Board that they want to come and see me. So I said, come. So we met them at the land, the Cocoa Research Station. And I told them that, no, we were taking over our resource, our precious resource. They pleaded with us that their chief executive officer, Mr. Edu, was out of the country. In actual fact, they said he was in Dubai, and he was going to come at the weekend. And so when he comes at the weekend, the following week, early in the week, they will meet and they will get back to us with their response. And this was on the 23rd of November.
Of 2021.
2021. Nothing happened for 3 weeks. So on the 7th of December, I wrote a reminder to the chief executive officer of Cocoa Board and cautioned that if I don't hear from him in 1 week, then I'll be forced to go over to that place with my community members and take over the farm, and we'll go with the media. The following week, I also sent a reminder to the Minister for Food and Agriculture, reminding him of his responsibility on the directives of the president, and that he should also take action. I never heard from any of them.
So, okay, something is jumping out at me right now. We live in Ghana where the Choboi mentality is the order of the day. Many people in your position would have organized demonstration boys to go and make noise to attract attention so that you get something done. Why wasn't that option attractive to you?
I wanted to do the right thing.
Okay.
First, under the law, legally, which didn't work for 4 years. And then I decided that the petition that I sent to the presidency, I wrote that to avoid any resort to violence by the agitated and frustrated youth, that is why I'm appealing to the highest office of the land for intervention.
Right.
And you are right. The youth in the community have been so agitated, they have been so angry, they have been so frustrated, but I have managed to calm them down. That violence.
It looks like it could be to the detriment of your survival on the sea. Because in Ghana, that's, unfortunately speaking, that's how people, if you try the normal thing before you know it, but It speaks well to, about your type of leadership, that you seem to be wanting to exhaust all legal and procedural things.
Precisely.
Okay.
Precisely. And I also wanted to ensure peace and stability in my community.
Okay.
And because at the end of the day, when violence starts, you cannot control the outcome.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so that's why I have been patient. And in actual fact, the young people in the community, they are not that patient. They keep telling me, Nana, this thing is going on. You just keep telling us every day we should be patient, we should be patient. But they have listened to me.
So have you have you had FaceTime with any of the CEO of Cocoa Board? Or?
Oh, on the 23rd of November, when they came to meet me there, they came with 9 directors from Ghana Cocoa Board and the Craig office in Achimtafu. And so there were all kinds of positions. One of them is the Director of Special Services Operations. One of them is the CEO and the Deputy Chief Executive Officer and Director of, in charge of Agronomy and Quality Control. His name is Dr. Ajiman Jomo. And they had titles, actually.
Yeah, but in terms of you as a chief of the traditional area, haven't FaceTime with either the CEO of Cocoa Board or maybe the minister, a sector minister. Have you had that?
That has been my frustration. And I have said that for all this time, the minister didn't have even the courtesy to pick a phone and call me to say that, oh, we got this directive from the presidency, including your petition, and I'm doing this and that and that. No. I have made 5 visits to the office of the Minister for Food and Agriculture, and every time I'm told that, oh, we have asked the Cocoa Board to bring the minister information. And the last visit was on the 4th of January, and they made us fill an appointment form that within that week, we were going to hear from them that they will give us 24-hour notice if the meeting was going to happen the next day. It hasn't happened. And then the CEO, he never responded to my, first to the presidential directives, and secondly, to my reminder on the 7th of December. He never responded.
If you met either the CEO or the minister, what would you tell them? This is the camera, speak to them.
Let me go back a little bit. Last Thursday, on the 20th of January 2022, in the year of our Lord, I organized a press conference at the site. Went with all my elders and announced our formal takeover of the land. And that is what caught their attention. And in actual fact, yesterday, I was driving from my town to Koforidua. At Asamankasi, I got a call from the CEO, Mr. Ebenezer Boahi Edu. Yesterday.
Okay.
Yes, yesterday. Monday, the 24th? Yeah, 24th of January.
Are you at liberty to let us in on what the conversation was like?
Oh, sure. It wasn't anything secret. He said that, he was making an attempt to reach me, but they have not been successful. But in actual fact, he had the phone number that he called me on. That's the same number I've been using. And the same number that is on the letter that I have sent to them. And he's saying that, unfortunately, he had lost his mom, and the funeral is this coming weekend. And after the funeral, he would like to come and meet with me and the community. And I said, I think meeting time is over. The time you should have met is long gone. What we want now is a plan from you as to when you're going to pay us our money. Because I have asked them that for the 5 years since 19th of August when they wrote the letter.
That's what he wants to meet you about.
Well, I don't know. I asked him for the agenda. He said the board had taken a decision and he's going to come to convey to me the decision of the board.
Okay.
So I said that all that I want is that you guys write a formal letter and say that you have vacated the land and you take over our property. Let me know your plan to pay us the money. The 40-year lease plus the past 5.5 years that you have had an illegal occupation of the land.
Okay. All right. Very good. It looks like this is one of those that I don't even know what to make of this. What I do know is that we're going to go at a quick commercial break. When we come back, we'll touch on some issues relating to diaspora. Stay tuned. This is Diaspora Weekly. My name is Jermaine Nkrumah.
Cool, fresh and trendy with a new look. Makes you feel real good, that refreshing vibe. Satisfies you right just the way you like. Do you know? Do you know? Do you know? Ain't gotta do it alone. Specialized makes you glow. Anytime, anywhere. Special Ice Natural Mineral Water. Feel different. Think special. This advertisement has been vetted and approved by the FDA.
Welcome back. My name is Jermaine Nkrumah and you're watching Diaspora Weekly. We have a special guest here. For the first time you see in traditional outfit, actually traditional clothing in the studio. And this is beautiful. And by the way, I know you're my friend. And you came in to the studio with this beautiful kente. And this kente is not going to leave the studio. I hope that's okay with you and your...
It may be okay with me, but it may not be okay with my elders over there.
Okay, we're joined by Nana Ukwajiman Damkwa Amia Kokroko II, Chief of Asin.
The second name is Okojiamai.
Okojiaman.
Okojiamai.
Okojiaman.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, you understand what it means, right?
Of course, of course.
Yeah.
So you fought for the land.
Exactly.
Oh, and they're messing with you like that? The Cocoa Ball, that's land that you fought for. And they're messing with you like that?
Yeah, and I'm refighting for it.
Okay. All right, Okojiaman. Well, I'll tell you what, this Cocoa Board issue, I hope, in fact, with the CEO calling you, I hope this is the beginning of the resolution, and I will follow it.
No, I believe him yesterday,
follow.
so I wish him condolence on the death of his mom, and I really hope that next week, after he goes through his mourning process, so something positive is going to happen.
What's going to happen? Okay. All right, so now, why do I call you? You and I, we've fought diaspora fight since we were babies almost. And the one that took it to the head was the Representation of the People Amendment Act, ROPA. You know, when I remember making a presentation in New Jersey at the MPP USA Congress. At the time, my presentation said diaspora vote.
Yeah, yeah.
And people were literally laughing at me. But then the very next, after New Jersey, the Congress went to Chicago in 2003. I was in Ghana burying my mom, so I didn't make that Congress. But the 2004 Congress in New York, Kofi Boateng, now Dr. Kofi Boateng, was the chairman of MPP USA. He invited me to come and make the same presentation, and I went. And of course, that's where I met. So when I look back, did we fight in vain? Well, because this law has been signed and passed since 2000. We came here in 2005.
And then the law was passed in February 2006.
February 24 is when. And what, 16 years later, we're still waiting?
Yeah, a couple of things. On the surface, yes, you can see that it looks like we fought in vain. But at least we managed to push Parliament and the President to recognize the fact that the diaspora is critical and vital to the country's development.
Okay.
And I mean, we came here at our own expense. Nobody paid us. We came here on our own. There were 16 of us from around the world. And the certain, and that is reflective on the general attitudes of Ghanaians generally towards the diaspora, that, you guys can come build houses, pay school fees of your family members when they are sick, you come take care of them. So you see, the diaspora performs the social
Nation building activities.
nation building. So
Yes.
when our relatives are sick, we pay for their medical bills, their hospital expenses. We build houses for them to stay in. We pay for their education.
We pay tax.
And we pay taxes. These are the responsibilities of governments, but we do that, right? And then over the years, since I remember very well, since President Kufuor's time from 2001, they kept hammering the fact that the diaspora is the second most important development partner. They were hammering it all the time.
Yeah, President Kufuor was hammering it, and at the time, diaspora remittances was second highest.
After cocoa and timber or something like
Yeah,
that.
I think after cocoa
Yeah.
alone, that time. Guess what diaspora remittance is today? It's the number one foreign exchange earner.
Yeah.
So when you pass a law, and the law is in the books, it's almost like, oh yeah, you're shouting, just shut up, here's your law, I'll sign it for you. Because 16 years, if it hasn't been implemented, what's the excuse?
You see, the unfortunate thing, and that reflects on the reality, is that when we came in 2005 to fight for the law, the NDC at that time was strongly opposed to it.
Yeah.
I remember that time I visited John Dramani Mahama, who was just an MP at the time.
Yeah.
We visited his office. He told us point blank in our face that he wasn't interested.
I know.
We met with most of them, Alam Gbagwin now as speaker. We met him in his office.
And
he said he
when
wasn't interested.
When we will go to radio stations and TV stations to speak, they would have people meet us there to come.
Yes, I remember we met with Obeda Samoa at Radio Gold.
Yeah.
We met with Mahama Ayaraga. So many places we met them. Okay, so the NDC was strongly opposed to it. Now, so this law was passed during an MPP government time. So when the MPP lost power in 2008, you definitely know that the NDC was not interested in getting the law passed anyway, because they thought that the NPP had a lot of goodwill in the diaspora. So that may be their reason. So during their 8 years, they didn't care anyway. So I remember very well that you and I were part of the organization of the second Homecoming Summit in 2017 in July. And the president came to give the keynote speech, and he promised that under my government, the first mandate of my government, I'm going to make sure that the ROPA is implemented. That was 11 years later that it will be implemented. And sadly...
Well, on that, we followed up. We followed up, and as part as one of the architects, I'm far be it from me to make excuses, but the pandemic of 2020 caused a major, because they first had to fly to these places to register people and all that stuff, right?
No.
And they said,
I mean, I wouldn't take that excuse though,
Okay.
because systematically various governments had not provided the Electoral Commission the logistics
Yes.
to do the registrations.
Yeah.
And at some point, Kofi Boateng and the rest of the group were compelled to go
take
to
it
court. To the court. And
Yeah.
the court ruled in our favor.
right. And I remember also sitting with the previous chairwoman of the Electoral Commission, I think,
Charlotte Osei.
Charlotte Osei. And she showed me actually a document. Said when she came in, one of the first priorities of hers was to implement it. She actually showed me evidence of it. But then she said, because she had a 5-year plan, and in it was ROPA implementation. But she said, Jermaine, your people have sued me, so I'm just going to wait till what the court says.
Convenient excuse.
I know. But so that was towards 2016. And so when the president made that promise in 2017, we followed up. And I think between that time, you're right, that time 2017, 18, 19 is when the Electoral Commission should have laid down the logistics so that in 2020 pandemic, of course nobody expected pandemic.
Yeah, and you remember the group even went to court and cited the Electoral Commission for contempt for not implementing the ruling of the court at the time.
Right.
Yes.
So now the question I have for you is this. Would you believe it, and I'm not saying the EC is saying this, but could it be that maybe they thought they could use, they could just start out 2020 and do all the registration and everything, and then implement it. And COVID came in from nowhere to mess that up. Would you take that excuse?
No, I won't take that. You see, the non-implementation of ROPA reflects the general attitude of Ghanaians towards the diaspora.
Right.
So
as for that, there's no question
it's
about
not backed by the general goodwill of the population. So you guys come build your houses, come create your jobs, come pay the school fees for your family members and medical. But when it comes to politics and policy,
stay away.
Stay away.
We love you for your money.
Exactly.
But when it comes to
stay away.
And
so because the groundswell is not from the population, that is why governments, I'm not only talking about this current government, but government for the past 15, 20 years have not taken it seriously.
And when we, you remember when we came in 2015?
2005.
2005. And we did, we had a meeting with the students at Legon.
Yes.
Something funny happened. Let me see if you remember.
I remember. The person who was leading the fight to disrupt our chatting with the students is Haruna Idrisu, the current minority leader.
Yes.
I remember very well.
And we introduced ourselves at the high table, right? Kofi Boateng did something that today I always, when I remember, I clap for him. Because the boys were chanting, yeah, if you want to do this, when the fight comes, you get on a plane and run away. Yeah. I got so scared. I even called Prophet Amir Konfi, say, hey, please bring some police. Yeah. But Kofi Boateng did something. When he introduced himself, he said he works for an organization that issues scholarship for students to study abroad. So, just by the way, how many of you would be interested in such a program? Everybody would. And then Kofi Boateng said, oh, yeah, keep your hand up. I want to count. And then we started giggling. And so the boys, the same people that's doing us and them, move, approach it for we are here. All of a sudden, when we started giggling, they started coming down because that picture right there shows that everybody wants to be a diasporan, and yet they hate the diasporan. Explain that to me.
Well, I don't think I'll have an explanation. It's just that when people are here, the attitude towards the diaspora, or Momotiti Abrucho, and the funny thing is that people think that, oh, if you're outside the country, you know nothing about the country, right?
Yeah.
But in natural fact, we are on top of things. We know everything that goes on in this country because we are interested.
Yeah.
Right? So it's funny. It's like you are here in Ghana today. Tomorrow you'll be part of the diaspora. And the saddest thing which Ghanaians don't realize is that there are a number of countries around the world whose diaspora have made their countries what they are today. China,
Korea,
India, Mumbai.
Yeah.
It's the diaspora.
It's almost as if Ghanaians want Ghana to stay like this.
Yeah.
Because it's proven.
Yeah. Philippines, the country's economy is based on remittances. Because Philippines, they just send their people abroad to work.
Here's some statistics. You remember we were talking about ROPA?
Yeah.
Cote d'Ivoire. Do you know when they started their
the diaspora vote?
Their diaspora vote around 1999 thereabouts.
Yeah. We had started those statistics and when we came with the diaspora vote committee.
Yeah.
And Senegal
is also voting. In the case of Cote d'Ivoire, when they started, their diaspora started voting in 1999. Their remittances for 2000 jumped to 25%. So the message is, now if you give the diaspora the buy-in, you make us feel a part of it, then the money will start coming. Do you know how many diasporans have pretty much written Ghana off because of this attitude? Yeah,
because of this attitude and the fact that the Rawlings 1992 Constitution limited the positions that diasporans can hold in this country. Okay. You can't be a minister, you can't be an inspector general of police, any position above the colonel in the armed forces, director of prisons. Pretty much all kinds of important positions in this country, you are banned from.
So now the question, the big one, what do we do about attitude change towards the diaspora?
I think it's not enough for the government to continue to say that we are the second most important development partner. It has to be seen in its actions. I'm sure that the government has the capacity to get the Electoral Commission to do the right thing. But because they don't get the push from government and the goodwill in the general population is not there, that's why this thing has stalled. Yeah. So if governments decide to take this issue seriously and put into practical action the idea that they project all the time that the diaspora is the second most important development partner, then it will swell in the general population.
I have a perspective. In election in Ghana today, unofficially, there's no vote buying. But you and I know better, right?
Yes.
So you have 3 million plus Ghanaians in the diaspora. If you count our offsprings, we're pushing 5 million.
Yes.
Now, if you do your job as a administration, and you fear that no matter what you do, if you don't pay people to vote for you, you're not going to get the votes. The diaspora. Would a Ghanaian in the diaspora require money before he votes for you?
No. On
what basis is the diaspora going to vote for you?
Well, by the impact that you make with your policies in the country.
Exactly.
Because what happens is that if things improve, life improve in this country, it has direct effect on us, because the 2 o'clock a.m. calls that we get, we won't get them again. So we have a real important stake in what happens in this country.
Yes.
Because our family members are here and we are interested in their welfare.
And so if you do the maths, and I did, no election, only perhaps the 2016 election was decided by 1 million plus, which means the margins are so small that the diaspora can make a difference one way or another.
A very significant difference. And that is why at every point, and that's the contradiction I don't get. Every time the party in opposition is totally against, as far as I know, it's the NDC that has been against the diaspora vote. But what I don't get now is that it was during the life of an MPP government that the ROPA was passed. So if they couldn't implement it within the 2 years before they left office in 2008, I take the promise that the president made in 2017 seriously, that they could have done that up to this point.
I have some information that will, and I don't know if I've shared this. I was sent here after the ROPA was signed to push for its implementation. It was sent here officially, MPP USA. Do you know what I was told when I got here? And I won't mention the name of the person who told me that. But I was an MPP stalwart. He said, Jermaine, the NDC is threatening fire if we implement ROPA. They say we're going to do this, so you guys wait. I know we can beat them without ROPA. So when we beat them in 2008, then we'll implement ROPA.
I was in London when the February 2006, when the ROPA was passed, on 24th. I was in London, I think a week or so after, and a very important member of government was in London. A meeting that the Ghanaian community organized. I went to that meeting on a Saturday. And that person said, oh, minuanum, emrano de yashe de enso montombo asika krana 2008 ya be mamba tubia NDC for beka say dia brochiri for abewiem.
That was the same thing was told.
But you were in power. Come on.
No, but that sometimes you wonder if they're just saying that because think about it. If you are implementing a law and someone has a problem with it, who really has a problem? You can tell the person to go burn the sea, as we say, right? But anyway,
all people on the political divide, they have the same attitude towards the diaspora.
Okay.
I mean, when it comes to politics,
how do we change minds?
I don't seem to have answers now, but I mean, some of us have fought this battle for a long time.
We've done it logically.
Yeah.
We've done it logically.
It seems
it's proven. China Do you remember when we used to see Chinese people, 1 million of them, all riding on bicycle with it? Only recently, in our lifetimes. At that time, if you, because of communism, if you're Chinese and you left, it was like, bye-bye, don't come back. But they sat down and realized, wait, we have Chinese people in high places in governments in America and all these people, NASA, and we can use these people. So they changed their attitude towards their diaspora.
Yeah, smart.
And today, look at China, Korea, the same thing, Philippines, all these. So what is it about the African who has seen a proven method of developing their country? They say, no, why?
Well, haven't you heard so many times from people that when something is going wrong and you say, oh, we could do it this way. Oh, like we don't want to change?
Yeah. Let's go on a quick commercial break. And when we come back, we will talk about the diasporan community in Canada. Stay tuned. This is the Diaspora Weekly.
What's cool, fresh and trendy with a new look? Makes you feel real good, that refreshing vibe. Satisfies you right just the way you like. Do you know? Do you know? Do you know? Ain't gotta do it alone. Specialized makes you glow. Anytime, anywhere. Specialized, feel different. Always think specialized. Special Ice Natural Mineral Water. Feel different. Think special. This advertisement has been vetted and approved by the FDA.
Hello and welcome back. My name is Jermaine Nkrumah. You're watching Diaspora Weekly, and today we're joined by a king, a chief, Nana Okojiaman. Okojiaman, let me say it. I'm an account. What am I doing? Okojiaman Dankwa Amia Okukroko II, Chief of Asin Rakese.
Yes.
Nana, yeah, I think you've given us something to ponder on this cocoa board thing, and also ROPA, to know that you were part of the architects. But now I want to talk about the Ghanaian in Canada. Who is the Ghanaian in Canada? When we talk about diaspora, you hear US, UK, ASA, now lately China. But you guys have a pretty sizable community in Canada.
Yeah.
What are they like?
Well, the Ghanaians in Canada consist of 3 groups. The first group that went there in the 1960s to study on scholarships from the Nkrumah government, and most of them didn't come back. And they are mostly in the western provinces of Alberta and British Columbia. And then their children, who are the second generation, also most of them are there in Calgary and other places. And then you have the later migrant groups from 1980s, early part of 1980s. Yeah, so most of them were asylum seekers, right? And then their offspring. And then there's a third group that we call the 1.5 generation. So the children that were born to Ghanaians in Canada, they are the second generation, right? But there's another group that we call the 1.5 generation.
1.5.
Yes, which is the children of these first generation immigrants, Ghanaian immigrants, who were left at home and sponsored later on to join their parents. So most of them came in their mid-teenage years, right? So we call them the 1.5 generation because they don't belong to the old culture that they left, and they don't belong to the new culture that they came into either. So that is a group that is always struggling to fit into the new society.
So
and
why
that,
1.5?
Because they don't belong to the first or the second. So they are straddled between the first and the second generation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's what we call the 1.5 generation. So this is a group. So you have the old guard from the 1960s. Then you have the second group that came in the mid 1980s up to about the year 2000, and then their offspring and the young ones. So it's a
Do they like that label?
well, that is official.
Because anytime you attribute a number to a group, it can get very testy.
well,
Remember in Ghana, when Volta region became part of Ghana, that became the 9th region.
we call them number
MP
9.
number 9.
And then
And
they
it
get
was
they get
very-
angry.
yeah.
Well, we've done a lot of sociological research, and not only Ghanaians, but other groups are also attaching the label 1.5 generation to the group of young people who came into the new society in their mid-teenage years. They don't now belong to the old culture because they left, and they don't yet belong to the new culture because they're struggling to fit in. So you have that large number, and then so it might be that our rough estimate is that there might be close to about 200,000 Ghanaians in Canada. The largest concentration is in Toronto, where we estimate that there may be about 120,000 Ghanaians.
Okay.
Montreal will be about 5,000. And then there has been a recent movement towards the western regions, Alberta and Edmonton, because of the
Where the
oil
provinces.
fields. Yeah.
Now,
So,
you have a province called Saskatchewan.
yeah.
When we were young, when somebody called you Saskatchewan, you picked up a rug to beat him up.
The elementary school, there was a teacher who used to insult us, "You damn Saskatchewan."
Wow. Okay, so now there's a movement towards the West. Now, you're a college professor. Are you a distinct minority, or is there a lot of...
Well, interestingly, in Canada, we have an official classification they call visible minorities. Like anybody who is not of Caucasian descent, you are called a visible minority. So it might be African, Asian, Latin American. But they don't add the indigenous population group, so they call us visible minorities, right? So, and even in the census, they ask you to check whether
visible. Oh,
yeah,
this visible minority.
it's official.
You have to.
It's official classification.
Okay, who is a visible part of a visible minority?
Well, anybody other than a Caucasian of Caucasian descent.
Oh, okay. So whereas in the United States you have categorization like white, black, African.
Canada, we don't
Indian.
use that category. They say visible minorities, so black, like Africans, Latinos, South Americans, Asians,
You all fit into one.
fit into one category.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I'm saying that within the Ghanaian community, what's the dominant profession? What do they mostly do?
It depends on the province. Toronto is the center of the Ghanaian population. So you have all kinds of professions, many medical doctors, nurses, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot. There's not one dominant profession that Ghanaians are concentrated in. But where I live, in Winnipeg, in Manitoba, about 80% of the women there are university trained nurses.
Okay.
Right. And then there are a few medical doctors and a couple of university professors across the country from east to west. And then you have a lot of healthcare workers who are not nurses, but public healthcare workers. And some also work in construction.
In Toronto, I heard a friend of mine saying that there's a section in Toronto, it is not uncommon to hear a Ghanaian from maybe the 5th floor shouting to some, hey, if we all quiet Tomo money, that kind of thing. Is it true? Or?
Well, Toronto used to have an area, a neighborhood that they call Jane and Finch. There are two streets. One is called Jane Street and one is called Finch. So most of the Ghanaians who came earlier on lived in that neighborhood.
Okay.
But once they get good jobs and they move up the social ladder, they move. So now many of them are living in the eastern part of, the western part of Toronto called Brampton and Mississauga.
Yeah.
But yes, you are right. Before, there were a lot of Ghanaians, and all that you hear is Chi.
Okay.
Yeah.
When we did our poll DNT, 80.3% of the Ghanaian abroad aspire to return home at some point to resettle. If you conducted that poll, you being a college professor, these things I'm sure means a lot to you. If you conducted that poll within the Ghanaian community in Canada, what would that percentage be?
Well, it's difficult to gauge, but like what we discussed before about Roper, people, Ghanaians in Canada, they don't really feel like they are accepted when they come home. So people will come on vacation, spend some time, and they leave. Many people too have had bad experiences of having tried to do businesses or build houses and they have been duped. And so there are a lot of people who have resigned themselves to the fact that they may not even come during their retirement, because when you retire, that's where all kinds of healthcare issues come in.
Yeah.
And then so if they live there and they have excellent healthcare, they might as well live there. But I don't think you will get about that number willing to return to the country.
But are there success stories of Ghanaian Canadians who have returned home and had good experience?
They all have very bad stories to tell, though. Some of them have linked up with others at home to do businesses and they have not worked. And because people feel that sometimes they are not even welcome back in their own communities, so if you have reached out and so what.
Yeah. What has been your personal experience? I mean, you clearly came from there to occupy a stool. What was your acceptance like?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, I promised the community that I'll provide leadership.
Okay.
And that's exactly what I'm doing.
Okay.
So I think to that extent, I think people see me as genuine, trying to provide them with the right leadership to stir up community development, because that's one of the areas that I research and teach, local and international community development. Right. So that's my passion.
So you didn't get any pushback from people who say, yeah, I couldn't approach but
Oh, no, there's a pushback there, because in every society across the country, there's always chieftaincy disputes. And mostly people who have migrated from somewhere outside that community, who have come to settle there for many years. And after 50 years or so, they lay claim to the stool.
Right.
So I had a real fight, dispute with another group, and it went on. We went to the traditional council. It was ruled in our favor. They took us to the High Court. We won. They took us to the Court of Appeal. We won. Or they took us to the Regional House of Chiefs. We won. And so in every community, once there's chieftaincy issues, there's always dispute. You can't get 100% support.
What has been your experience? I mean, I know about a few people of my friends who have left the diaspora to come and occupy stools in Ghana, but I haven't had a one-on-one with them to ask them, what is the experience like? It must be, I mean, I'm not going to put any words in your mouth, but what it's been like if you have to come with the work ethics, the can-do spirit approach and everything, and then you come to a strictly traditional setting. How do you fit in?
I get that. So I try to amalgamate the work ethic that we talk about there, how things move smoothly over there, to how things move slowly here. And I mean, you can't change things overnight. So it's slowly public education, right? First starting with my own elders, my own cabinet, my own inner circle, and to get people to understand the importance of hard work and work ethic, and that you don't do things on your time, like how and when you want it. Otherwise, there's no development. Yeah. So you will get there. It's a slow process, but people get to see that, yes, you are genuine and you really mean good for them. Yeah. And so I'm sure that in the course of time, things will turn well.
What would you tell those people who have written Ghana off in Canada?
This is the only place that we can call home, right? Well, over there, we can be Canadian citizens, American citizens, British citizens, but this is where our umbilical cord is, especially for those of us who were born here. For the children who were born there, the second generation, they don't have that strong connection, home. I mean, you have interviewed my son before, right? Yeah. He's
of course, that's where they were born. That's where
he was born. Blame them. But you see, the system there always want to fit them somewhere. I mean, he was born there. He was born in Montreal, Quebec, so he's fluently French. And I know when you interview him, I watch the TV, he frightened you off with his French, right?
Do you have to say that? I've been bragging to my people.
You were trying to show that you speak French, and then when he started rattling,
my own friend, my own friend is gonna come on my show and expose
when you try to brag and he rattle you off, so like him,
with my 2 pence French.
Yeah. he'll be asked, oh, where do you come from? He said, I'm Canadian. Where were you born? I'm Canadian. Where did your father come from, or where your mother come from? So they'll try to fit him somewhere, right? Because he's not Caucasian. There was a funny incident. There was one time I came with him to Ghana in 2001. When we were going back at Zurich Airport, the Canadians have a program they call Operation Short Stop. They try to stop people who they think they are going to claim refugee status. So I put on some African dress on him.
Wow.
So the immigration officer took his passport. In Zurich, we haven't even reached Canada yet. What's your name? And he said, Eugene. Then he turned the passport over and over. The passport too has information, only one page, right? And then he asked him again, what did you say your name is? He said, I just told you.
Thank you.
And you know the children who were born there?
Thank you.
Well, they don't miss words.
Yeah.
And then he said, where were you born? And he said, Montreal. He opened the passport again. Oh, exactly where were you born? And the guy said, oh,
What,
you really want to know?
Are you hard of hearing
I said,
or what?
You know, he said, do you really want to know? I was born in the hospital. And then his partner said, you see, you ask the kid a stupid question, you get a stupid answer back. That time he was only 11 years.
Look at that.
So those kids who were born, they are articulate.
Yeah.
They are, you know, they don't say massa, yes, yes. No, that's not their training.
Now, that's interesting, because my next question was going to ask you to, what would you tell the Ghanaian who abhor the diaspora? But you touched on something that your son, born there, trained there, and this interaction that you with the immigration guy in Zurich captures what we are up against when we live there. So in your case, I don't know how old you were when you traveled to Montreal. I know I was 22 when I left Ghana, but I had stopped at Lagos, Nigeria before I went there. But my 22 years in Ghana, if you subtract like 6 years where I really didn't know anything, I really knew Ghana for 16 years. In contrast, I've known United States for over 30 years. So when you return to Ghana, and people expect you to still say, oh, Massa, is that realistic?
Yeah, and I think that's what the Cocoa Board officials I have met found, that they think I'm too pointed for their liking.
Yeah.
Because we don't mince words, right? You say it as it is.
Yes.
Now, I mean,
and that's not disrespect.
that's not disrespect.
When will Ghanaians know that that's not too known? I mean, let's talk about too known. What is too known?
I don't know where that word comes from, but the point is that when people say you are too known, it means that you have some ideas that they can't counter, right? They find it too hot to handle. And so in order to dismiss you, you say, we are too known, so that you can shut up, right? But too known, and so me personally, I say that, I say that I am not diplomatic, because to me, diplomacy means hypocrisy, because I don't mince words, right? So, and people, there was one time I went for a job interview and they were asking me some kind of stupid questions, and I gave it to them back, and then they asked me for references, I gave it to them. Each of the references they called, they said, I'm too cocky. I hadn't even heard about that word before. Like, it means arrogance, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, they said, oh, the guy is too cocky. And then one of them asked him, is it the same Michael Bafo that we know?
Exactly.
You might have said something to rattle him up,
Exactly.
right? Yeah, so it's the same attitude here. Like, if you are, like, confident and know your stuff and listen, say you are.
I'm going to take you on a journey. This part will be more conversational than Q&A. You know, when the Big Six came back, right, in the mid to late 50s, when they were doing their thing, that time, it wasn't common for the average Joe to get on a plane to go overseas. We know that.
Yeah.
So when the Big Six came with their ideas from abroad, they say, hey, we can take this independence, they're working and everything. Because the Ghanaian in Ghana at the time was not exposed that much. There was no internet, no social media. So they welcomed them and worked with them. And look what they got for Ghana. Now, these Big Six, none of them was a professor like you in a university. None of them was an MP like we have Ghanaians in. So the Ghanaian abroad today has far more influence within the community where he or she lives than the Big Six ever did. True.
Yes. Yes.
And so if a group of students were able to engage the colonizers and win independence for us because the locals cooperated with them, right? Today, anybody can say, oh, I'm going to visit my brother. They'll go and live in Maryland for, stay with them for two weeks, come back. So when you come from Canada, oh, you see what's happening? Yeah. Could this be where the two known came from? Because they feel like, oh, after all, what is it? So sit down, let's talk. You see the difference between the Ghanaian the local Ghanaian during the Big Six and the local Ghanaian today, because it's exposed, internet, social media, rap music, blah, blah. So when we come back, could that be the reason why we face more pushback than the Big Six ever did?
I think there's more competition now for resources and maybe opportunities and so on, and because the locals, I think, see the diaspora as maybe if there's competition, level playground, the diaspora guys may win. And so that is the way I see it, that why will any group of people oppose the inclusion of the diaspora in nation building when they know very well, like all that you enumerated, the positive contribution that the diaspora can make to the country's development.
Yeah.
And so I see that once you become part of, well, let's say, the elite in this country, then you're trying to challenge them for some of the same positions, and they may do things that you might try to correct them, and that's where, oh, I had a sound here, no, that's where that thing comes from. That don't touch what we are used to doing. We are comfortable, and I remember President Obama, then candidate Obama, during the 2000 election campaign with John McCain, and then he and the Republicans were pushing some very nasty ideas. I remember Obama said that, I don't know what's wrong with these people. It looks like they're comfortable in their ignorance. That's what Obama said.
Wow.
So sometimes when people don't know and they don't want to learn, that's where the problem comes.
Comfortable in their ignorance.
Yeah, but we could work together.
Yeah.
The ideas that we have, nation building, community building, even in politics.
Yeah.
Like, I live in the constituency of my prime minister, Canadian prime minister before. So I was involved in their political campaigning. So we know the inside and out of political organizing.
Oh, but Pastor Otabil says we lived in the boys' quarters, so we didn't build those communities, so we don't know what we're talking about.
Yeah, I heard you took him on last time.
Anyway, Nana, thank you so much for spending time with us. I think your final point makes a lot of sense to me, that the competition aspect may be driving this. And do you know why? United States population, whites, 62%. The next group up, Hispanics, 18%. Blacks, 13%. So if anybody is fearful of competition, you would think that the whites would be more focused on the next group up. But they're now focused on the Hispanics. They're focused on the blacks. Do you know why? Because blacks are now competing with them politically at the corporate boardrooms, political power. If you put a black man in the White House, that'll get some attention. So maybe we need to pay attention to the competition aspect, which may be driving why Ghanaians. So look, Nana, every time I get with you, it gets intellectual, but very productive. And I'd like to thank you for stopping by. I'm only disappointed that you're returning with your kente.
I said, well, if you mind to get a permission, real permission, and you know the appropriate traditional penalties to pay for that.
Oh, penalty. I thought we're not on a soccer field. Penalty. This is Diaspora Weekly. My name is Giovanni Krumah. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned.
Long live God Almighty. Long live the baby mine.
One time. So come go to Jenny Mumpire. So come for we are fire. I'm ready ever to you. Ghana ready ever to you. Let me free Ghana. Me man penny a wodi kanu your friend Dr. Nkrumah. Me mini sign up when my dear number your mama. I send back up baby na me tia eya me nwanwa. Here ono na je fa hu die. Get na raya sasin ye. Eya body de my ye. Moja na no me gunya de to ha ma ye. Edru me ne wo to say ye be ye.